Okay, 7th grade. So, we're on day 3 of virtual learning here, and we are talking about percents and proportions. This is part 2 of the lesson. Yesterday, Tuesday, was part 1, and in that lesson, we just talked about finding the percent of a number. So we talked about what is 7% of 50, and you just do 0.07 times 50, and you get your answer. Pretty straightforward, not a lot of steps or concepts. It gets a little more complicated when it's not worded as simply. So if these, you can see they're all worded differently. See, one of these is 41% of 13 is what number? 22% of what number is 16? You can see they're all worded differently. And the one thing you might notice is that all of these have the word of and is. And those are valuable. Now, if you look at the notes you should have, if you haven't seen them, they're on my website. And that where these example problems are, right above those, there's 2 different formulas. One of them is part over whole equals percent over 100. And these formulas are what we call a proportion. A proportion is when you have a fraction equals a fraction. I'm getting text messages while recording the video. Not ideal, but oh well, I'm going to keep going. So we got part over whole equals percent over 100. Like I said, those are proportions. A proportion is when you have a fraction equals a fraction. And in a second, we'll talk about how to solve a proportion. But what we do is we fill in the information. This proportion is definitely more valuable when we were talking about word problems, when you're trying to figure out what the part is, what the whole is. So, but what we can do is, from this formula, if you notice next to it, I believe on the left, there's another formula that says is over of equals percent over 100. And basically what it's telling, what happens is, the word is and the word of can be good indicators of what is the part and what is the whole. And we can set up a proportion. So you might be lost right now is what I'm talking about, but I think as we go through one, it might make a little bit more sense. So let me erase what I did here. And let's talk about this first one. 41% of 13 is what number? So, again, I'm going to write it down one more time here. The formula way we want to use is over of equals part or percent over 100. And what we're going to do is we're going to fill in each spot. And what happens is there'll be one spot we don't know. And that's what we're going to have to find out. So if I were to fill this in, 100 is always in the bottom right. That's going to be there every single time. That's never going to change. Then I'm going to fill in what do I know. Typically, I always like to start with the percent because that one's really easy to find because it's got a percent symbol. So we can see here, 41%. So that's got to go in the percent spot. So where the percent is, I put a 41. Now I'm looking at is and of, so I'm going to find the number I've got in here. It's 13. I can see it says 41% of 13. So 13 goes in the of spot. And then the is spot is what number? I don't know. It literally says is what number? We don't know. So in that spot, we're going to put an x. We're going to put a variable to represent we don't know what that is. And we're going to try and find it. Now, this proportion is actually just an equation that we need to solve. I don't know that we've talked about solving proportions yet. But solving a proportion is not all that complicated in that what you do is you cross multiply. When I say cross multiply, I mean like angled across the equal sign. And typically you like to start with whatever diagonal has the variable. In this case, x is our variable. So what I'm going to do is x times 100 is just 100x. And that's going to equal whatever 13 times 41 is. So I'm going to grab my calculator here. 13 times 41 is, oh, I wrote the wrong thing. 13 times 41 is 553. So now we have once you cross multiply, you just end up with a one-step equation. So this is pretty easy to solve. 100x equals 553. All I have to do is divide by 100, and I've got my answer. So when I divide by 100, I get 5.53. Now, 2 things. 1, we need to round to the nearest tenth. And 2, you might think your answer is x equals. Because, hey, look, I solved an equation. I should do x equals. Yes, that's true. You solved an equation. But that's only because we use an equation to figure out the answer. Our final answer is just going to be a number. It's not going to be x equals. So I'm going to round this to the nearest tenth. And I end up with 5.5 as my answer. 41% of 13 is 5.5. That makes sense. 41%, or a little less than a half. 5.5, a little less than a half of 13. That makes sense. Okay, let's go on to our next one. 22% of what number is 16? So again, I'm going to use this formula again right here. I'm not going to rewrite it. But I'm using is over of equals percent over 100. So 22% of what number is 16? So I'm going to set up my proportion. Again, 100 always in the bottom right. First thing I look at is percent. I can see it's 22%. That's going to go in the percent spot. Of what number is 16? So look at this. Of what number? That tells me I don't know the of. I don't know what number is the of. So that is going to get an X. Is 16. 16 goes in the is spot. So now you can see my proportion a little different than the other one, but it's the same idea. 16 over X equals 22 over 100. You cross multiply. Again, always start with the diagonal that has the X in it. So X times 22 is 22X. 16 times 100 is 1600. And every time you do that, then you just get a one-step equation where all you have to do is divide by the number with the X. In this case, it's 22. So I solve that, 1600 divided by 22. Get my calculator here. We get 72.7. And again, I'm going to write my answer without the X equals. Your answer is just 72.7. It's not X equals. We use an equation to find the answer, but we don't give our answer as X equals. Okay, final question. What percent of 85 is 15? So first thing I'm doing is setting my proportion. I put 100 on the bottom right. Next, I like to find the percent. You know, we did that in these first two. But I look at this one, it says what percent. We don't know the percent. So in this one, the X actually goes in the percent spot because that's what I don't know. That's what we're trying to find. So then it says of 85. So that means 85 goes in the of spot. The bottom there is 15. So 15 in the is spot. And again, I'm just going to solve the proportion just like the first two. I cross multiply. I always cross multiply with whatever diagonal has the X. So 85 times X is 85X. 15 times 100, 1500. One-step equation. Oh, drop my pen. Pick it back up. Divide by 85. And I've got X equals whatever 1500 divided by 85 is. 1500 divided by 85 is 17.6. Now this one, our answer, 17.6, but don't forget the percent symbol because we were finding the percent. Or X was in the percent spot. The question says what percent? So our answer is 17.6%. Okay. There's going to be one more video with 3 more examples. So, yeah.